Hi guys, welcome in that series of video about the new features of Golaem 5.2. So here I'm running 5.2 and in this video I'd like to introduce one of our brand new tool which is called the Simulation Cache Library, which we hope will be a pretty nice weapon in your crowd arsenal and in your workflow. It really comes from the fact that many of our customers are asking how can they make their simulation, their crowd simulation, and just give that easily to other people in the pipeline, like layout people, lighting people, or maybe render people. So here I'm just starting from the same scene I've been using into the quick start tutorial. Right now I'm in a cache replay mode, which means I'm actually replaying a cache which has been exported already. You can tell that I'm in the replay mode because here the timeline is colored and the icon there shows that Golem is set up in cache replay. So you got the walking characters with the film icon next to it, meaning that you're in cache replay mode. In that scene, if you take a look into the behavior editor, the behaviors are still there, the triggers are still there. You can see the population tool which we use to create the particles. And if we take a look to the outliner, there are plenty of nodes which are related to the simulation. So how could you just isolate the cache proxy node in which you define your cache replay parameters and your rendering parameters? How can you just take those and give them to someone else into the pipeline without having to take care about all those nodes here? So this is the whole purpose about the simulation cache proxy library, which is here. So you just open it like this. By default, it comes empty, so it comes with something like this, and it's really up to you to build your own library depending on your own requirements. So how do you create a new item and a library? So you can just select the simulation cache proxy you want to import and just press the import button here. It will create a new item and it will analyze pretty everything. So it will check what's the name of the cache, how many entities you have in the scene, how many frames you have exported. You even have the availability to maybe add a couple of tags. So if you'd like to do a search a bit further, you may want to provide tags. So here I'm having mostly sitting, casual, man character. So I'm gonna add a couple of tags. So I went into the edit properties button here. We just show all the properties which are available and which you can edit. So I'm gonna add a couple of tags like setting, casual, man. Okay, I'm not really happy with that screenshot, so I'll go maybe a bit closer to my characters, and I will just ask to refresh the screenshot. So now I'm having something which is maybe more relevant about that simulation. So when I'm super happy with this, I can just save this as a new library. So I'm going to save this as a new library, like temp.lib into my library directory, and now I can start from a fresh Maya. So let's say there's a layout people or maybe a lighting TD in your studio would like to take this cache and maybe light it properly. Now you can just tell to that guy where is your simulation library file, and then you can just load the Golem. If that guy will just requires a Golem layout license, which is the cheapest license we're having, and you can just load the plugin, go into the cache library, which usually is empty, and you can just tell him, okay, my cache library is going to be here. It's called temp.lib. It has the quick start item in it, and if you'd like to import it, just press the import button. So the import button creates a cache proxy node with all the parameters defined properly, and now you're having your cache into a blank scene. So if you take a look into the outliner now, we're having the manager node, which is the default Golem node, which handles everything, and the cache proxy, which is already configured with everything, with the correct cache, the name of the character, and so on. Even if it's in the lighting scene, there are still plenty of things that guy can do. You can obviously relay out the crowd. So select a bunch of guys here and apply layers on top of what's been applied here. So here I'm just applying a translate, which just appears here as the new deformation layer. I can take those guys there and maybe move them away, maybe change their distance, edit their postures, and so on. So you can still use the layout features in that lighting scene. You can see that all those guys here are orange right now. So once again, you need to import the shaders. So you can go into the crowd render menu and find your character shader, which should be into my assets directory, which will be there. Golem shaders. I'm gonna use Arnold here, so I'm gonna load my Arnold shaders. And if you want to render, it's like super easy. You create your lights and you light your scene properly, and you just switch your rendering engine to Arnold, and now you can just render those guys out of the box, and you should get your characters appearing. Sweet. You may notice here that all the deformations I've done are not duplicated, are not correctly rendered here. That's because I haven't saved my layout file. So let's save the layout file and re-render, and now I should get my characters at the correct positions and the correctly layouts depending on what I ask my characters to do. Yeah, let's refresh the shaders as well into the viewports. So let's go into the simulation cache proxy node, display attribute, render previes, and ask for geometry refresh. So the GPU gets refreshed with the geometry and the shaders get red from the scene, and now you can see your characters shaded properly. So, okay, next step. Let's say that the director comes, you do the rendering of that scene, and the director comes and say, you know what, I'd like to have a couple of birds on top of my seated characters. So there are two ways to do so. You can ask the simulation crowd TV who make that scene to just go back into a scene, add a couple of entities, and add the correct behaviors, and override the cache. So once the TV will override the cache, the next time the lighting guy or the layout TV will open that lighting scene, it will get the birds appearing in the scene because they will be linked to the same cache file. Or maybe you notice in my render view I had a screenshot with birds into it. And the thing is, I actually made a library item with birds. So maybe into the studio, you could use that library tool to store more simulation. So if I take a look to my file here, so I'm going to open my own library file, go into library here, take my mainly file. If I have plenty of item, I can just maybe filter if I put my tag correctly. So I can use the filter here to specify, okay, I'd like to get a bird scene. So into my library, I'm having a simulation which is called bird scene, which has 4 entities, which apparently are birds. That simulation is 150 frames. Apparently, based on the tag, I can see they are flying. So I can even import those guys here into my simulation if I want to. As soon as I import those guys, I'm having a couple of birds appearing here, which are apparently animated and flying. I'm not really happy with their position, so I can just, the same way I just lay out my characters, I can just lay out my birds, which are a crowd entity, a crowd cache. Maybe I can even change the orientation of those guys here. I may want them to go into an opposite direction. Oops. Let me fix this quickly, something like this. Okay, so now I'm having birds flying in one direction, birds flying into the other. And when I'm happy with that, just to save my new proxy scene, and now I just end up with 2 proxies. I'm ending up with a proxy with the birds in it, one with the characters in it, and if I render this, I should get more characters and my birds rendered. And here we go. So once again, those guys doesn't have the correct shaders, but if I load their shaders, they will be rendered properly with the correct shader. So the whole idea of the simulation cache library is like really to you build up your own library stuff, and you just add them into separate files. So you can say, okay, I'm having the library with my stadium guys, I'm having the library with my locomotion guys, and you can build step by step your own caches, and maybe whenever you need those caches to be used into your simulation scene, you can ask any layout guy into the studio or any lighting guy into the studio to just take those cache, import them into your scene, and just build a new scene out of nothing, just based on some cache you already made. So we really believe that this will really help into gaining in productivity and getting faster layouting and creating new scenes. So I hope it makes sense, and see you in the next video.